The Industrial Revolution brought great change around the world. The 1800s were one of the biggest times of growth in the West, leaving the door open for scientists and government-funded research to go into products that would improve manufacturing. In 1874, Othmar Zeidler would invent the chemical DDT at his lab in Austria. 1 century later, in 1970, the chemical would be banned for all use by the US government. The government was prompted to stop the use of the chemical after 11 years of public backlash. The chemical didn't start seeing use until the second half of World War II, when Paul Hermann Mueller in 1939 made the groundbreaking discovery that DDT could almost instantly kill arthropods. The chemical would be used in foreign countries to prevent the spread of malaria through blood-sucking insects such as mosquitoes. This use of DDT led to Paul Mueller being granted a Nobel Prize. Post-war, the chemical would see a widespread use in the States and other countries as a brutally powerful insecticide. Clean crops were the benefit. DDT is tasteless and exists as very small crystals, making it unnoticeable to the average person without a microscope. Humans can't metabolize DDT, but the chemical has a relatively short half-life of around 10 years in human fat. Although the chemical is not a genotoxin, it is still debated whether or not it's a human carcinogen. In 1963, a revolutionary book was released. Silent Spring by Rachel Carson warned the American public about the dangers of DDT. 11 years later, the chemical was taken off of store shelves. Who is Rachel Carson, and how did she become so influential? Or at least enough to be solely credited with causing the ban of a chemical being lobbied to stay on the market? What brought her to have this much influence, and why did she want DDT banned?
Tonight, my report to you on the torment and why she killed. Listen.
Rachel Carson was born May 27, 1907, in Springdale, Pennsylvania. Rachel showed at a young age that she was gifted. In 1918, at the age of 11, Carson won her first prize for a story she wrote published in St. Nicholas magazine. She attended Parnassus High School in Kensington, Pennsylvania. Rachel graduated high school in 1925 with honors, winning a scholarship to Pennsylvania College for Women. Her hopes were to become an English teacher, but her dreams would soon be derailed. A year into her English studies, Carson shocked everyone with a bold switch to a more male-dominated field, biology, being only one of 3 women to take on this major in her year. Due to academic excellence, Carson would win a summer scholarship to the Woods Hole Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. From this opportunity, she ended up obtaining a scholarship to attend the rigorous Johns Hopkins University for a master's in zoology. Mary Skinker was Rachel Carson's biology teacher and what inspired Carson to bravely switch majors from English to biology. Skinker also prepped and mentored Carson to take the Federal Civil Service exams for junior wildlife biologists and junior aquatic biologists. This led to Carson being hired to produce 52 radio episodes about marine life by the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries in Washington, D.C. Mary Skinker sadly passed away in December 1928 when Carson was only 21. Skinker's death must have lit a fire in Rachel Carson's heart. With her mentor and inspiration gone, Carson would spend the next 3 decades working more diligently than ever to advocate for environmental safety. This also marked a switch in focus, as Carson would make great strides focusing on how she could get information to the public, a change in mindset that would influence the rest of her career going forward. Rachel Carson had to face many hardships in her life, like pursuing a male-dominated career and fighting breast cancer. Carson also had lived through World War I, World War II, and the Great Depression. Saying her life was hard would be an understatement. These issues acted as a roadblock in Carson's career and life as a whole. Her goal was to express her concerns to the public about the negative effects of DDT and other pesticides and what they did to the environment and our wildlife. Carson would observe the effects of DDT firsthand while at Woods Hole and in her hometown of Springdale, which is not too far from Pittsburgh, an industrial behemoth. She soon became very adamant about getting DDT and other pesticides banned. In 1957, Carson regarded the USDA spraying of pesticides as the eradication of the imported fire ant. A bold statement to make in the face of a government agency, but the type of thing that would become standard for Carson. Rachel Carson was no stranger to getting her words published and into the world. Her early experiences of having her work published in St. Nicholas magazine proved to be influential. Carson would continue to release 4 books in her lifetime, the first of which went undersold due to the Great Depression. Carson ended up buying back the remaining copies herself. Carson would be working on her 5th book when she sadly passed away. The book was later released in the spring of 1965, and in 1998 a collection of Carson's work would be released. All of Carson's books centered around ecology, with a focus on marine biology, but out of all of her books, none would be as influential as her 4th and final she would release, Silent Spring. Silent Spring was meant to warn the American public about the negative effects of DDT, mainly the fact that it has hydrophobic properties. Not that important until you realize that in the wild this means that rainwater won't be able to act as a solvent, diluting clusters of the chemical or eroding and breaking down crystals. Due to this fact, DDT is classified as a persistent organic pollutant with a half-life of up to 30 years in soil. Any insect that stumbles upon DDT in the ground will die. DDT's hydrophobic properties make crystals act like micro-sized landmines for any arthropod, landmines that don't go away so easily and can't be washed up by rain. DDT can be trapped in sediment and other organic material, but DDT's most dangerous effects come from it being in water. Sediment runoff can push the DDT crystals into oceans, rivers, or any bodies of water. Silent Spring goes into grueling detail about the effects of DDT as a suspended solid. Many people wrote Silent Spring off as a farce, most likely due to it being written by a woman. The 1963 Mississippi River fish kill incident would be an influential moment for the American people, as it proved that insecticides in water would lead to the death of fish in the Mississippi River. The waterways that contain edrin, an insecticide similar to DDT, were closed by the US government. Along with the fire ant controversy of 1957 eradicating the existence of imported fire ants in the American West, these events shocked everyone, putting Silent Spring back in the spotlight, changing many people's opinions on the use of pesticides. Other examples like eggshell thinning in birds of prey was found to be an effect of DDT, leading many to action against the use of the chemical. Rachel Carson would stoke the flames by frequently speaking at events to get the word out about DDT, insecticides, and environmental issues. Events like the meeting of the Audubon Nationalist Society put Carson's name on the map as an environmental figurehead, being later honored by the National Book Award for Nonfiction, the John Burroughs Medal for Nature Writing, the Henry Greer Bryant Gold Medal of the Geographical Society, the New York Zoological Society Gold Medal, and an election into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. These awards fueled the campaign to express backlash against DDT and the use of pesticides. Carson's campaign would unfortunately be cut short in 1964 when she passed away due to the breast cancer she had been fighting her entire life. After her death, people would carry her torch by starting organizations like Greenpeace, the EPA, and getting Earth Day to be a nationally recognized day of remembrance. 10 years after her death, DDT was banned. Pesticide producers heavily lobbied against this choice, but the backlash was too strong, all thanks to Carson's tireless effort. Rachel Carson proved to be one of the most influential people of the 20th century in regards to environmental safety. No one knows what would have happened if Mary Skinker never came into Carson's life. But Carson brought her experience in having writing published to the world of marine biology, a world that wouldn't invite her with open arms, and changed the whole world because of it. Carson's almost effortless ability to talk to the American people proved to be one of her greatest assets. Between teaching people about marine biology through the radio and inspiring activists through her groundbreaking books, Rachel Carson informed people about the things they needed to know. Facts about the food you eat and the environment around you are now facilitated and commonplace through environmental groups, the EPA, and the FDA. But in her time, she had to take it upon herself to keep the public informed, and she made the world a better place because of it.
Won't you treat me right and be with me tonight? Just give me true love and understanding. True love and understanding. rest of my